Welcome to Christiana's Psychic Cafe. Whether you celebrated Thanksgiving, Hanukkah, Thanksgivika, whether you're celebrating Saturnalia, Yule, Christmas, Kwanzaa, or the secular New Year, one way or the other, the winter festival season is upon us. That's what we're talking about today on Christiana's Psychic Cafe. And we're going to start with a special song from Donna Lay of DonnaLay.com.
Santa baby, slip a tarot under the tree for me. I've been an awful good girl, Santa baby, so hurry down the chimney tonight. Santa baby, slip a little deviant moon to me, order free, with Nag Champa and tea. Santa baby, so hurry go to Etsy tonight. Think of all the decks I've missed. Think of all the eBay bids I did resist. Next year I could read oh so smooth if you check off this short deck list. Ba-doop-ba-doop. Santa baby, I want a lot, and really that's not a lot. I've been abstaining all year, Santa baby, so hurry go to Etsy tonight. Santa cutie, one more thing I really do need, guaranteed, is Cheero's spreadcloth and scarf with beads. And download me his Troid app tonight. Santa cutie, fill my socks with tarot books stacked way high, and a crystal for my third eye. So hurry plump my PayPal tonight. Come and trim my tarot tree with some pendulums you'll find at Boston Tea. I really do believe in you. Let's see if you believe in me. Ba-doo-ba-doo. Santa baby, forgot to mention one little thing. Gilded bling, the real thing. 14 karat, my dear Santa honey. So hit the tarot garden tonight. Hurry, fill my PayPal tonight.
Hurry, bring a tarot tonight.
One more thing. If you do happen to come across Johnny Depp on your way over, bring him along. We can do some readings together. I think we get along real well with chocolate. Happy holidays!
Thanks to Donna Lay for allowing me to play that to open the show. And while that was a funny video, it brings up an important point, which is this is the gift season. What do you get for the metaphysical person on your gift list? Well, I have some ideas. Donna Lay mentioned tea, and I'll tell you what, one of my favorite teas is Tivana. Tivana has tea shops and malls all around the country. You can get all different kinds of teas, tea accessories, tea sets. I'm starting to have a collection of tea sets. Here's a couple of them. What can I say? I like purple teapots. Here's this cute little tin that comes with the Tivana travel kit, so you can have Tivana tea wherever you go. Yes, I do take it with me lots of places. It's cute, right? And here's what it says. Travel wisely with tea, for each moment can be improved with every sip. So, for the tea lover on your list, Tivana teas. You know what? Tivana made Oprah's list of her favorite things for 2013. They make my list as well. Now, Donna Lay also mentioned incense. But for those of us who have allergy issues, I recommend aromatherapy from the intuitive goddess herself, Helene Martz. If you've been watching the show, you know that Helene is a frequent contributor. What you might not have known is that Helene makes a whole line of aromatherapy products. Everything from room sprays to perfumes, bath salts, all kinds of stuff. And this stuff is lovely, it's pure, it's organic, and it's made in magical ritual. And no one knows how to do ritual like Helene. Her website, of course, intuitivegoddess.com, and a lot of these products are available at her Etsy shop. So go to Etsy and look for the Intuitive Goddess aromatherapy products there. She makes gift baskets. They make terrific gifts. Now, as Donna so wisely pointed out, what's a better gift for the tarotist in your life than a new tarot deck? And here's a deck that was given to me as an early Yule gift this year, and I've got to tell you, I love it. This is the Ellen Dugan Witches Tarot. The cards are beautiful. Look at the lovely card backs. Really nice images. And, you know, these are based on the RWS images. So a weight reader can just pick up this deck and go with it. It doesn't take a long time to translate over. For the pagan tarot reader on your list, this is a great gift. And, of course, maybe you've seen my review of this book. Maybe you remember my interview with James Rickliff here on the Psychic Cafe. Here it is in paperback, The Soul's Journey, Finding Spiritual Messages in the Tarot. For a serious tarotist, this is a wonderful gift, chock full of tarot goodness. So those are some ideas. And when we talk about the holiday season, no matter which of the holidays you're actually celebrating, one of the things we talk about is food. We all have special foods for the holidays. But that makes the holidays a tough time for the vegans, the vegetarians, and the people who prefer to eat healthy. I asked my friend Amy Forman to talk to us about that. Amy Forman, thank you so much for joining me on Christiana's Psychic Cafe. How are you?
I'm well. How are you?
Terrific. So you're a model, you're a yoga instructor, and you're a mom, and you serve healthy food in your household, yeah?
I do.
Excellent. So what's on the menu for the holidays?
Okay, so the way that my holiday looks is I have a very big family, and most of which have a very American standard diet. So it's my feeling that the holiday season is not necessarily a time to push sensitive subjects or start preaching at people, and I like to get together with the family. So what I do, you know, we do things potluck style often, and there's typically, you know, a lot of meat entrees. So what I'll do is I'll choose something to make that's a little different. This year for Thanksgiving, I did some like baked potato boats that were mixed. We like baked the potato, scooped the potato out, mixed a bunch of different veggies in, and then put it all back in, you know, the half-baked potato. So I bought that as my dish. And then for dinner, you know, I would just pick and choose of what was available. I passed on the stuffing because it had sausage in it, you know, but I went for the mashed potatoes and the corn and the cranberry. And then I also think that another good option is to do like raw pies, really good treat or mini pies. And so for me, I think that the holidays are a really good time to introduce your loved ones to a new dish that they haven't tried before that's going to be really great for them, and to be an example of healthy eating, because everyone's kind of looking over to see what's on your plate and what you're avoiding. But again, not maybe the best time to start educating everyone, considering, you know, the spirit of the season, and we're just all getting together, you know, to share and love on each other.
You know, I think that's really brilliant, Amy. I know my family was always very good about my requirements. For many years, I was very strictly a vegetarian, and they were very good about making sure that they didn't switch spoons so that they were like stirring my food with a meat-covered spoon. You know, things like that bugged me. But I think you're absolutely right. The gathering with the family is what's most important, more important than food. And it is a great time to let people know there's a different way to do it besides the standard American diet. SAD means sad. You know, that's a great thing. Now, you have 2 little kids. Is there a special treat that you make around the holidays that they particularly like?
I just like, I'm pretty good in the kitchen baking, so I can make a lot of different vegan cookies and muffins. I'm someone that's by no means have I cut sugar out of my diet, so, they're treats for sure. But with my children, I don't impose diet restrictions on them per se, because I feel like that's something that they should make their own choices. No, I never buy for them something that I wouldn't buy for myself. But if they're with grandma, at the fair, and they get a corn dog, like, I'm not going to get mad about that because it's their life. Again, I just feel the best I can do is be an example of vibrant health, which correlates with my diet choices.
Oh, that is beautiful. I want to thank you so much, Amy. I love your perspective. I think that's really helpful. And I wish you and your family a wonderful holiday season.
Thank you. You as well.
Amy does a good job of having a gentle spirit and a firm commitment at the same time, doesn't she? Now, I also received a couple of recipes to share with you for the holidays. These are vegan or vegetarian recipes, and I will post these recipes on the Christiana's Psychic Cafe Facebook page, so you can get them there. But I wanted to share them with you here as well. The first comes from our own Robin Renee. She'll be on the show next week celebrating my 1-year anniversary. If you remember, a year ago, Robin Renee was my very first guest. She also provides us with our music here on the show, the intro and the outro, and she'll be here next week to celebrate the 1-year anniversary of Christiana's Psychic Cafe. But in the meantime, let's talk about her vegan yam pie. What do we need? We need 3 yams peeled and quartered, 2 tablespoons cornstarch, 1/2 cup unsweetened soy milk, or any non-dairy milk, rice, almond, hazelnut, hemp, oat, any of that will work. We use a 1/4 cup non-dairy butter softened. She likes to use the organic Smart Balance. 3/4 cup of light brown sugar, a 1/2 block of silken tofu, a 1/4 block of firm tofu, and 2 tablespoons of non-dairy sour cream. The spices are 1 teaspoon ground cinnamon, a 1/2 teaspoon ground nutmeg, 1/2 teaspoon ground ginger, a 1/4 teaspoon ground cloves, and 1 1/2 teaspoon vanilla extract, and 1 10-inch unbaked pie crust. Now that's where you really separate the culinary artists from the rest of us. Do you make your own pie crust or did you buy it? Either way, you steam or boil the yams until soft, and then you transfer them to a food processor or blender. Preheat your oven to 350, and in a small size bowl, you dissolve the cornstarch in the non-dairy milk and add to the food processor with the yams. Then you add the remaining ingredients, except of course the pie crust, and puree until completely smooth. Pour the filling into the pie crust and bake for 1 hour. You'll know it's done when the middle no longer jiggles. You may need to bake for up to 15 minutes longer to get it just right. And although you can serve it warm, it sets really well in the refrigerator for at least an hour or preferably overnight. So it's one that you can make the day before the holiday. So we'll talk to Robin Renee about that next week. And if you want to get the recipe in print, you can download it from the Facebook page, Christiana's Psychic Cafe. And when you're there, make sure you hit the like button. Now, we also have a recipe, and this is for butternut squash and ginger soup from my friend Mimi. She sent this all the way from England. Now, Mimi used to live in the United States. In fact, she was my roommate many, many years ago, and I remember her being a great vegetarian cook. So I am sure this is a terrific recipe. And again, this will be on the Christiana Psychic Cafe Facebook page as well, for butternut and ginger soup. So here's what you do. You fry a medium potato, a carrot, and a medium onion, all chopped, for about 10 minutes in a couple of tablespoons of olive oil. In a separate pan, you saute your butternut squash, cubed, chopped, and with that, she says she likes to use a couple of cloves of garlic. So you saute these two things in separate pans. Finally, you combine them all together and cook it for a few minutes. Then you want to dissolve a vegetarian stock cube or bouillon in a pint of water. Add a glass of good white wine. Now see, that's Mimi. She didn't just say white wine, she said good white wine. Yes, indeed. A glass of good white wine, and then 2 to 3 tablespoons. That is not an error. Not teaspoons, tablespoons. 2 to 3 tablespoons of freshly grated ginger. Cook it all together until the vegetables are tender. Finally, put it in a blender until it's all smooth. Add salt to taste. She suggests serving it with sour cream, if you use dairy, and, her words, an artistic swirl of roasted pumpkin seed oil. And, of course, the bread of your choice. I bet that's delicious. I'm going to try that one. And, again, go to the Facebook page, Christiana Psychic Cafe, get these recipes, and hit like while you're at it. So we've talked about presents, we've talked about food. You know, the other thing that comes up during the holidays is holiday stress. Well, a lot of my friends in the tarot community know Bonnie Cehovet as a tarotist, a tarot reviewer, and tarot author. She is all of those things, but she's also written a book about holiday stress. So I've asked her to join us to talk to us about that. Bonnie Cehovet, I want to welcome you to Christiana's Psychic Cafe. How are you?
I'm doing very well, and I want to thank you for inviting me. That made my morning when I got that.
Oh, that's terrific, Bonnie. Well, you know, the reason I asked you to be on this show, of course, is this is our holiday review. We're talking about the holidays. And I happened to notice that you wrote a book called Surviving the Holidays, Taking Charge of Your Life. So that's something I'm going to want to talk with you about today. But before we do that, for the people who don't know you, I'd love to ask you to share a little something about yourself. I know you, of course, as a member of our tarot community, and I know you as a tough but fair reviewer of books. I think you've given me a not so good review and a good review, and I'll tell you what, I credit you with making me a better writer. Because you gave me my first book, you gave it a very fair review and had some very clear suggestions for improvement, which I implemented into the next book, which you liked. So that's how I know you, and I will always really appreciate how you helped me there. But can you tell us a little something about your career, the things you do, the books you wrote? Tell us about Bonnie.
Okay. Well, and first of all, I'm going to put in something here about the first review that I did for you. The things that I looked at on your book were not totally in your control. In other words, sometimes, you know, we have to work with publishers and we have to do things a certain way. And I think part of it was kind of like time constraints, the book version of time constraints. And so,
Right.
what I do and I'll talk about myself in just a second, what I do when I do reviews is I will look at something, and if I really don't see any possibilities with it, in other words, if it's coming off fairly negative and I can't say anything good, to tell you the truth, I won't do the review. I will, I just won't do the review. If it's a promotional product that's been sent to me, I'll send it back, or, if I don't want it back, I'll give it to somebody else. I just won't do that. When I do a review, I will mention the things that I really, really like, and I will also try to, in a nice way, mention what appears to need some help. And I think that everybody realizes that while reviewers try to be fair, they're still coming from their own perspective, and so somebody else is going to do another review, and they're going to find different things in there to say and talk about what appeals to them. So, but going way back when, I started in the tarot world many lifetimes ago, I think. And I have been very blessed. And actually, it was my sister who headed me over to the first professional tarot group that was on Facebook. And of course, I can't remember the name of it right now. It started out on an Israeli server and then got moved over. That's a long. I started doing professional readings, and it was very difficult for me actually, because I kind of trained myself, really. I mean, I got the Rider-Waite deck, and it didn't really appeal to me. I went back and talked to the people at the store, and thank God they had some sense. And they showed me the Morgan Greer, which is my reading. Now, of course, I have a lot of other decks, but the Morgan Greer is the one that I use for my phone readings. It's just the easiest, and it flows the best. I do different when I'm reading in person. Then I let that person choose the deck. But that's kind of how I got going. And of course, with both Rachel Pollack's 78 Degrees of Wisdom and Mary Greer's Tarot for Yourself, I mean, those were. Well, I didn't know at the time that those were tarot Bibles, because they are. But I knew that they could make me a better reader. I was so afraid. I mean, I was petrified of giving somebody bad information, of not being there for a client. I mean, I was absolutely petrified, and it took me a long time to develop my own reading style and feel that I knew what I was doing. And I think the online tarot groups helped me immensely with that, because I could be a little shadow in the first group and read some of these really big names, and it's like they would get into verbal fights, and I would go, wow, this is just absolutely something here. And I started doing reviews because I wanted to get certified. That I come from a scientific background. I was a lab tech for close to 27 years, and certification was not a choice. It was something that you had to do on state and national levels. And so that, plus I'm a Capricorn, Sun, Moon, Capricorn, it makes sense to me to have things logically in line. And for certification at that point in time, you needed to do, I think, 5 reviews. And so I have one deck, and, my sister has a couple of decks. I'm scrounging around to get these reviews done. Then I had to, of course, have a place to put them. And a couple of people were very nice, and one put them in her newsletter. And Nina Lee Braden, wonderful, wonderful lady.
I know Nina Lee, yeah, absolutely.
Oh, she is just, I met her in person at one of the very, in fact, it might have been it was the second reader studio. Or it might have been the first. Anyway, she is a tremendous, tremendous lady, and she gave me so much good advice, and I had my reviews on her site, and it's just looking at how she formatted things, and I didn't copycat things. I needed to get some kind of foundation before I could get my reviews in line. And then, of course, I found Eclectic Tarot, and wonderful, wonderful things there. And then and it's kind of funny because I had wanted to put, I think it was an article, not a review. Now, this was not the smartest thing I could have done. Shall we say I overreacted to something that was happening in the tarot community, and I wrote an editorial rant, as we might say, about it, and sent it to Solandia, and asked her if she would like to include that on her site. Very smart lady. She said, "No, I don't think so." Don't think so. But what she did, she took the time, bless her heart, to go to my site and to see the work that I've been doing, and asked me to start submitting my reviews. Forget about the rants, but I'll put your reviews up.
Right.
So, and of course, I have since written a couple of articles for the site. I adore working with her. It was a way of personal growth for me. And with the writing that I'm doing for the tarot world, and then, my decision to change. I want to go into mystery writing, but I'm still going to be doing other things, especially self-empowerment, which is how this holiday book came up. And it's also why I wrote the book with Brad. Actually, with Brad, his name is Brad Tesh. And I was encouraging, he talks a lot. He talks a lot on Facebook, and he has some very good ideas. And I said, why don't you write a book on joy? And he goes, oh, no, I've never written anything. He is a writer, actually, but he wasn't sure that he wanted to do a book on his own. So finally he says, well, you do it with me. And I said, oh, well, I've never co-written a book. And he goes, well, neither have I. And so we did. And so that helped me to kind of get out there and get in a space where I was like, oh, I can do self-empowerment books. I can write this. And that's kind of where I'm headed right now. I'm as soon as I can, get myself financially solvent away from the tarot world, then I won't be doing professional readings anymore. I will certainly be here. I'm going to be doing reviews. I'll be doing articles. I just won't be reading professionally is all that is. And
once a tarotist, always a tarotist, no?
Oh, I unless you're dead, and then you're probably, reading up in the ethers. Yeah. I don't think it's something that you can walk away from. I really don't.
No, me neither. Now, let me ask you a question. I think it's so interesting when you talk about having a lengthy career as a lab tech, coming into tarot, and now really finding your voice as a writer. Were you a writer when you were a lab tech? Were you a writer when you were in high school, college, whatever? When did that come into your sense?
I think I came out of the womb writing.
Gotcha.
Like, excuse me, let me see. We have lights over here. We have people over here. Yeah, I have always, whatever organizations I was in, it seems I was always a secretary, and I was always reading, and I was always writing something. Yes.
Sure. And do you find that being a tarotist, learning that language of pictures and learning to communicate what you're given intuitively, what you see in the pictures, do you find that helped you as a writer?
Oh, yes, absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely. I think if you're totally dependent on words, you're limiting yourself. It's kind of the same as if an artist was totally dependent on their art. They might bring music in instead of words. Okay, that might be appropriate for them. But if you can kind of mix modalities, I think you expand yourself, and I think you allow yourself to grow. So, yeah, and that's one of the things with my reviews too, is probably the hardest part. I could pick out what I saw worked and what didn't work in a deck or a book or in an app now. But I had a hard time finding the words to talk about the artwork and knowing what I should look for in the artwork. Pretty pictures doesn't get it.
Right, absolutely.
You have got to say more than pretty picture. No, I say that because many years ago, I read a review. The review was probably not more than 100 words, and it was written by somebody who was obviously very, very young, very excited about the tarot. But that's literally how she ended it. Pretty pictures, and that's my review. And I'm going, My mouth is open. And what? He said, what? And I thought, Bonnie, she's young, she's new, let it go. But I just flabbergasted. I was just amazed that somebody could do that. But bless her heart, she was happy with doing it.
Sure, sure. So tell me about surviving the holidays, taking charge of your life. I'm looking at the cover, and I just love the cover. It's got beautiful purple fading into yellow. It almost looks like the upper chakra colors, and a woman just standing on a cliff, holding her arms out. Talk to me about what we find in this book and why you wrote it.
Okay. First of all, I'm going to talk just for a second about the cover. Again, I was just very, very blessed because I'm not an artist, and I was panicked, and I was talking about my book or book to be at that time. And I said, I really don't know what to do for the cover. I'm not an artist. I don't do artwork. And, of course, I could have just put words out there. But I was just kind of fussing a little bit on Facebook. And Pamela Steele, she says, Bonnie, I'll do it. And I said, you will? Because this is a mega artist. And she says, yes, I'll do it. And she did, such a tremendous job. I mean, I have been blessed with the people that have crossed my path, and she and Roxy Sim, which is another Canadian artist. Oh my God, just absolutely blessed. But the feeling she put into the picture, that cover, was exactly what the book is all about. And the book came out of my tarot reading. Now, for those that don't know, I read on a phone line, so almost all of my clients I don't see.
Right.
And so I have learned to make very, very good connection through listening not only to their words, but through listening to, the level of stress they might be having and what they're talking about. And one particular call really affected me, and it was a young lady, and a young, probably 50s, mother, wife, working, all of that. She was absolutely in tears because it was holiday time, and in her background, same as in my background, and the same for a lot of it, how you express yourself at a time like this is you cook for your family, or you cook and take it into work, or you bake and take it into work, or you bake and take it to church. And what was happening with her is this silly world was all on a diet, and she would take her stuff in, and people would ignore it. They weren't eating it, and she felt that she was being turned away. She could not feel a connection with her coworkers, but it happened at church too. Oh, they were all on a diet, okay? And so they couldn't be polite about taking a cookie and maybe putting it in their pocket. I mean, they couldn't do that, and she was feeling so down. And I thought, this is absolutely terrible. And, I've gone through some other things with my clients during the holidays, and I thought, I can do this. I can tell what is bringing stress with people. And so the first thing that I did was I kind of set down a list of what do you want to talk about. And, of course, those became my chapters. And then I just let it flow with each chapter. But we have to remember that with the holidays, well, any time of year, actually, there are two sets of expectations, the ones that we put on ourselves and the ones that others put on us.
Right.
And then if we look at the expectations we put on ourselves, the question to ask is, where is that coming from? Is that coming from you? Is that coming from family members, friends, coworkers? And we have to remember that we have a choice. We have a choice. We can do what everybody wants us to and quickly be admitted to the hospital, okay, to the mental ward. Or we can make choices and we can prioritize. Simply prioritizing is not going to be enough because you've got 8,000 things and you're trying to prioritize, but you still think you have to get everything done. You will cause yourself some grief, and you can actually make yourself physically ill with this. And so I thought, I'm going to address some of these issues and, see if I can make the holidays a little bit easier for somebody. And what I did is in each chapter, I went in and discussed the different issues, talked about ways that people can handle it. And I'm a big person for putting questions out there, for us putting questions out there for ourselves, okay? And so in each chapter, you're going to find that, and you're also going to find some resources, although my final chapter in the book is actually resources. It's books and it's videos that you can go to. Anything that I thought might help somebody is what I put into this book.
You know, I'm looking at your table of contents right now, and I just want to let people know this is available for your e-readers at a sinfully low price. I know no one has money during the holidays, but you know what? You can afford the $2.99 to download this and read this. It is fabulous. I'm looking at it right now. And we have chapters like Chapter 7, Holiday Traditions. Let me ask you a question about that, Bonnie. I know for me, on one hand, the traditions both that, you know, I've carried down from my family, my side of the family, but also the traditions that we developed when our kids were little, those are wonderful things. And on one hand, the holiday traditions bring me so much joy. But there also comes a time when you want to do something different, where it's time to start something new. We don't have to do it the way we've always done it. How do you find that traditions both bring joy and stress for people?
Well, sometimes it is simply you don't have the time to get everything done that is considered traditional, okay? Right. So there's a time constraint. In the past, well, probably this has always been, but I would say especially in the last 5 to 10 years, we're also talking about financial constraints.
Yeah.
It could be gift giving. It could be, sometimes it's just putting the whole meal on the table. It could be travel. It could be a lot of things, but you may not be able to keep up your holiday traditions because of that. And you also want to look at, is that holiday, this is the primary question I think that we need to ask ourselves is this holiday tradition joyful for me? Am I happy doing it? Or do I need to let some of this go? And letting some of the traditions go, if they don't work or just aren't feasible, you can let it go for 1 year, or you can let it go completely, or you can change it, because as the years go by, okay, sometimes traditions were, say, very, very important to our grandparents or maybe even our parents, but times have changed and it's less important to us. And so as our grandparents and as our parents age and as they move on across the veil, then we have the option of blindly continuing tradition, or we can move the tradition around so that it fits us better, or we can bless it and let it go.
Yeah,
and I think,
yeah. I had a thing with that this year where, you know, we're not going to put up a tree this year, and I realized we haven't had a tree in the house since our kids were out on their own, and I'm thinking, oh my goodness, will I never again have a Christmas tree in my house? And is that okay? You know, so I had a whole range of emotions around it, not enough to make me go out and get a tree, but it feels weird. It really does. I think those traditions really are ingrained in us, and as much as holidays remind us of the passage of time, when we choose to change our traditions, we realize that chapters of our life have closed.
I think so too, because traditions are what traditions create when we follow them are memory keepers. You know, the putting up of the tree. I can remember when I was a kid, and of course kids want to help put the tree up. Well, that could be disastrous. But what my mother did is she would put the tree up to, you know, she would put the lights on and put the tree up to a certain extent, have us put the icicles on, and then what do you call those little silver streamer things? Anyway, she convinced tinsel. Yes, thank you. She convinced us as kids that "Oh, this was a wonderful thing to do and so much fun." Well, as an adult, I look back and it's like, "Yeah, Mom, you just didn't want to do it." I mean, it is painstaking to put that mess on there. And then if you've got animals, their tails, take that tinsel all over the house. That's one tradition that, and I continued that into my adult years. I was probably around 30 before I decided this really hurt, and it really did hurt me. But it's like, I think that I'm tossing the tinsel and we're not going to use it next year. Because I didn't have kids.
Right.
But the cats would truck it all over the place. And so it's like, this is one tradition that I'm letting go of. And the first tree I did without it, it's like, oh, this is a little iffy, but now I'm okay with that.
Our tradition for the tree when I was a little girl was we had birds. Every year we would get a new bird ornament. So our tree was decorated with birds. And a lot of those birds actually went on to my daughter, and she tagged me in a picture on Facebook. She just put up her tree in her house. And there's a picture of this really funny looking silver rooster. And she says, you know, nothing says holiday like a silver rooster on your Christmas tree. And I think, I'm sure that's not true in anyone else's home, but in my daughter's home, apparently because my mother believed that birds should be on trees, here it is. So it's funny, sometimes traditions happen that you're not even aware of. Now, you used the word joy a couple of times, and you've actually, as you mentioned, written the book with Brad Tesh, Seek Joy, Toss Confetti, Cue the Singing Teapot. This is also available on Amazon. Tell us about that.
Well, like I say, Brad, I was trying to get him to write the book, and so for him to write the book, he insisted that I co-write it, so that's what we did. We wrote it in, I think we made this word up, we wrote it in conversational style, meaning that it's like he would write, we started out the first chapter, like he would write a paragraph and I would respond to it, I would write a paragraph and he would respond to it, and we thought, no, this is not flowing well. And so what we did then is each of us would take a chapter and be the original writer on it, and then the other person would go in and make their responses. Now, I do know, and I saw some of at least one of the reviewers anyway, say something about the style sucks. And it's like, sure that for some people it does. They didn't think that it flows well. I think it flows okay. It might read a little bit differently than some books. But what we wanted to do is take a look at the importance that people place on joy in their life and how they can put it there. You know, and it's like, even during, and we actually have a chapter on this. It's a chapter on grief. And it's like, how do you bring joy into your life when you're grieving? And I know some people are going to be appalled at that. It's like, well, you should allow yourself to grieve. You know, you should not be joyful at this time. Actually, you should. You should do both. You should allow yourself to grieve. Don't stop yourself from grieving, but don't fall into it. For the same reason that you're grieving, whether it's grieving an event or maybe a loss of relationship or a person that's crossed over, that or a pet that's very difficult for you, there are also good memories. Please bring those good memories to mind at least once a day and find some joy there. Yeah. Or be sure to open your blinds and let the sun in. I mean, when you're grieving, you don't do that. You may literally close your blinds and have a dark house. You know, you need to bring tiny, tiny bits. You can't, quite frankly, when you're grieving, you can't take much joy because you feel that is not respectful to whatever you're grieving. But you do need to start putting those tiny bits of joy in there to keep yourself a bit balanced.
Absolutely. I completely agree. And I see this with my clients quite a bit that, you know, especially if it's a big grief, you know, something that has altered your life. On some level, you know, you're going to be in your period of grief for a while, maybe a few years. And on some level, you'll carry that grief for the rest of your life. You have to find a way to let joy and grief exist together. And it looks like that book, your book here, is a way to help people do that. So that's Seek Joy, Toss Confetti, Cue the Singing Teapot. Now, you do have a lot of tarot books that you've written as well. And of
I do.
course, many of us are still running around looking for gifts for the tarot enthusiast. And you have quite a few. You've got Tarot Rituals and You, the power of tarot combined with the power of ritual. And this is very interesting to me. I like to do tarot ritual, tarot magic, that kind of thing. Tell us a little bit about this book.
Well, I have probably ever since I've been into tarot, but even before then, I think from childhood time, I was doing ritual before I realized it was ritual. I did things in a ritualistic way, even as a child. And so with the tarot, I was, putting out mandalas with cards and things like that, even before I read that this was possible to do.
Right.
It's just that was something that was so natural to me. And I did Tarot Rituals and You, and I combined it with more than just the tarot. I mean, there's runes, there's other things in there too. But I think it's important to know that you can take these little pieces of paper with those images on them, and you can put them out there, and you can expand your ritual. You can use them to. A ritual can be putting one card down and meditating on it. Okay, that can be a ritual. That can be a lot of things. It's a way to use the cards to your benefit. I think don't get stuck on just thinking, oh, okay, tarot cards or oracle cards or anything. Okay, we read the cards. Okay, some people, they limit themselves even more. It's like, okay, we do divination with them. Forget about the self-empowerment. We'll just do divination with them.
Right.
No, you can take them and you can use them in a ritualistic way. And ritual can be very, very simple. You don't have to think high church here.
Right.
Ritual can be very, very simple, and it can be what you want to be. And you can put crystals with it. You can put candles with it. You can use incense or other types of scents. And the reason I say incense or other types of scents is that, sure, I used incense a lot when I was younger, 20s and 30s. I'm a little bit more sensitive now, and I literally cannot use it.
Well, it's funny that you mention that, because one of the products we're highlighting in this show is some room sprays made by Helene Martz, the Intuitive Goddess, aromatherapy room sprays that take the place of incense. I use them for exactly that reason. The very incense that I loved in my 20s now makes me sneeze. What are you going to do?
Yep, there you go.
Absolutely.
But I love the aromatherapy. I think that's marvelous. Obviously, you have to in person listen to your show because, to find out where her site is and everything, because I think aromatherapy is it is such a tool of empowerment, and it can also be used in a ritualistic way.
Absolutely.
It really can, whether it's a room spray or whether it's an oil. It's like, for heaven's sakes, people, expand yourself a bit here.
Absolutely. Now, I notice when I look through the catalogs of the catalog of the many books you have written, Tarot Birth Cards and You, The World of Tarot is Seen Through the Eyes of the Interview, Tarot in Review. One of the things I notice about your tarot books is they are not sort of your basic, this is the major arcana, this is the minor arcana, this is how to read the cards. You have come up with ways to come at tarot, as you say, beyond the concept of oracle, beyond the concept of basic divination. And I'm just curious to know in general where you get your ideas. I'm really especially impressed with the World of Tarot, where you interview these great tarot luminaries. And I'm wondering if you'd speak to that for just a moment.
Okay, well, that book fell in my lap. Okay, what happened was, over the years, I have both reviewed products and books and decks and such, and interviewed the people that wrote them or created them. And of course, you can find all of those literally up on Eclectic, but you have to go looking for them. And I thought, how can I put these together and use them in a new and different way? And so, well, I thought, you can gather them together. They're already written, and you can go put them in a book. Now, some of the interviews were maybe time sensitive. You know, somebody was going to do something, and so I was interviewing them about it. So those I kind of didn't include in there, but just as a way of putting the other stuff out there, yeah, I did that. And it is so funny because right after, it would have been right after I put this book out. Actually, the book came out right after the Reader's Studio. It came out in April. And I got a comment from somebody who is now rather big in the tarot world. And he said, Bonnie, I wish I had read this book before I went, and I would know who the characters were. Because at that point in time, he had not met anybody in the tarot world.
Right.
And he was just coming into it himself. Although he's very schooled and very knowledgeable, really, was coming with other people. He was just coming into it himself. And he's an incredible person, but his comment to me was so funny. It's like, I would have known who the players were. I thought, yeah, you would have had you done that.
Well, Bonnie Cehovet, I want to thank you so much, both for your work in the tarot community, for your writings, and at this time of year for your book, Surviving the Holidays, Taking Charge of Your Life. I think you're a fabulous example of someone who yourself, how do I want to put this? You are an example of personal empowerment. How about that?
Well, I am. It's a good thing that there's no visual on this because I'm stunned. Okay, I just consider myself doing what I do and hoping that other people like it.
Well, we do. And at this holiday time, I really want to encourage everyone to check out these books for yourself and for the people you love. And Bonnie, I hope you have a wonderful and stress-free holiday.
Well, thank you, and the same to you, and the same to all of our listeners.
Well, thank you so much. I really appreciate Bonnie and her willingness to share with us tonight. As one final treat for you, I have a special video from our own Helene Martz. What do you do when the holidays just get too stressful, when you have obnoxious relatives in your house, don't know what to do with them? Helene is going to show us how to smudge with white sage and copal.
So I'd like to talk a little bit about sage. Now, many people like to use white sage to cleanse. It's one of my personal favorites, but I do need to explain that white sage is not necessarily something you would use for a heavy cleansing. So just to give yourself a light cleansing and to kind of get rid of those spiritual cobwebs we sometimes have in our homes, white sage is great for that. It's also great for cleansing ritual space. White sage can be purchased in bundles. These are smudge bundles, and there are different smudges available. So there are plenty of videos out there. I'm not going to take the time to get into that right now. White sage can also be purchased loose, which is my favorite method of using white sage. And you can light the cluster, or you can use individual pieces. When you're burning white sage, you can use an abalone shell, which a lot of people like to use, or my personal choice is a Reiki dish, which is great because we have the handle, and it's just something I prefer to use. So we light the white sage, and again, one piece, the bundle, it's really a matter of personal choice. You do get a lot of smoke from the white sage, and the smoke in white sage is really healing because it it releases negative ions into the atmosphere. Now, negative ions are those ions that make us feel really good after it rains. Right before it rains, you may be feeling a bit lethargic, you may be achy. People who have certain illnesses sometimes feel worse, but right after that rain, the air smells crisp, it's refreshing, and you feel better. Well, that's because of the negative ions that have been released into the atmosphere. Same thing with white sage. So white sage kind of makes you feel happy, makes your space feel good. When you're cleaning with white sage, get into every little nook and cranny that you can get into when you're cleansing your space. Cleansing self, some people prefer to start from the top, work their way down. You can use feathers to fan. You can simply take the piece of white sage and just kind of let the smoke blow over yourself. Some people prefer to cleanse from the top down. I happen to like to begin at the bottom, but again, it's a matter of personal preference. Now, the thing about white sage is many people think white sage, that's it. I've done my cleansing. I'm supposed to feel really good. What happened? Well, white sage is great for gentle cleansing, cleansing your space. But when you really need a heavy-duty cleanse, you need a little bit more than white sage. Some people think sweetgrass is also an answer. Sweetgrass, hence the name sweet grass, is not for cleansing. What we traditionally like to do is after a space has been cleansed with white sage, we use a sweetgrass braid to sweeten the energy, to sweeten the air. So, how do you cleanse when you need something a little more powerful than white sage? A great way to do it is with resins. Resins would be copal, frankincense, myrrh, dragon's blood. And resins are the heavy-duty cleansers, I like to say. So to work with a resin, you need to use charcoal. I already have something prepared, but for demonstration purposes, here's a piece of charcoal. There's also bamboo charcoal, which is Japanese, and it's a little trickier for the novice to use. You can use the entire piece, but to be honest with you, you really don't need that much resin. So I like to break the piece in half. Then you start by just simply lighting it from underneath, and you're going to see some sparks. And that's so you know that your charcoal has begun to light. It's going to take a little while to turn completely white. I don't know if we can zoom in here to see. And you really need to do this on a heat-proof dish, and you should have sand, salt in the bottom. Sensors are really good options. I'm using my little cauldron here. Another item that I really like to use when I am working with charcoal is I like to use a piece of tile. Heat-proof plate, heat-proof dish is a good option. I actually purchased these at Lowe's and Home Depot for under $2, and they're really great to have around the house. So your charcoal is white, and now you're going to add the resin. In this case, I'm working with copal, which is really one of my favorites. Now, you can get copal from different countries. There are different types. There's yellow, there's white. Mexican copal is really great. There's also copal from Sumatra. Great resources online to find copal if there is no shop near you. Now, one simple piece of resin at a time will do it. The copal, or whatever you choose, frankincense, is going to begin to smoke up, as you will see in a moment or two. I don't know if we can zoom in on this, but you're going to see a lot of smoke is going to come off that one simple piece. So don't use a lot. I've made that mistake and have actually resulted in a visit from the fire department. So just a little bit. You can always add more as it burns out. And like sage, you want to get into every little nook and cranny that you possibly can get into when you're using the copal. So you would use this one piece for a small space. If you're doing larger areas, you would use more. Once the copal or the frankincense, whatever resin you've chosen, has burnt out or subsided, now you have to bring something sweet into your space. A lot of people don't think about that, but you've cleansed. You've removed the negativity. You have a nice, fresh, clean space. It's time to bring a little something sweet in. So my suggestions would be something like a jasmine or a rose incense. You could even use a spray, a rose water. You can use a lavender hydrosol, but after you've cleansed, it's really nice to bring something into the space to fill that space. One last thing I forgot to mention, when you do a cleansing, please open up windows, open up doors if possible, because you want that funky energy to leave. You don't want it to remain in your space. So open up the windows, let the funky energies dissipate, and then bring something sweet into your space. Blessings. Thank you.
Special thanks to Helene Martz, Donale de la Rose, Bonnie Cehovet, Amy Forman, and to all of you for being here today. We'll be back next week with Robin Renee. And before we say goodnight, I want to remind you that I am available to read for you from anywhere in the world by phone or by Skype, and gift certificates for readings make wonderful presents too. My name is Christiana Gaudet. I am a certified tarot grandmaster. I've been a professional psychic tarot reader for the past 20 years. I'm available to read for you by phone or Skype. In a reading, I can help you make sense of your past. I can help you make the most of your present. And I can help you look to the future to prepare for what might be coming and to help manifest the future that you want. In a reading, we'll take a look at your relationships. We'll take a look at your career, at your creativity, at your goals, your hopes, and your dreams. I even have the ability to communicate with your loved ones who have passed on. So what are you waiting for? Give me a call today, and we'll talk about the wonderful things that can happen in your life. So that's it. We'll see you next week. I want to remind you that our intro and outro music is made available to us from Robin Renee at robinrenee.com. Another great holiday gift, a CD of beautiful music.